Here we go. All right. Hey, good to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Stan. My old colleague, we used to work together at LE Technologies, a startup for a few years. My name is Juha Korpela. I work for my own little company. The name is very innovative if you think about it. It has data and then the first three letters of my last name, which was the first thing that came to my mind when I started this about 2.5 years ago. I have about 15 years in data and analytics and so on and so forth, mainly now working with data models and catalogs or whatnot. Of course now then, because of AI, context is king, as the title of this whole thing is. And what is context for me? It is basically just information about the data that we have. So when we look at metadata, we are talking about context. And what is metadata? I'm going to go through a sort of very brief, it's not really even a history lesson, it's sort of a look of how things have developed and where they're going to be going. And this is going to take like 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so it's going to be a very sort of thorough run. But we have to start with some definitions, some semantics as it were, of what kinds of metadata we're usually talking about when we talk about context and metadata. So I have entirely non-academically divided metadata into three different sorts of things. You can see here, this is a fancy picture of data as imagined by Gemini. We have information about what that represents. We have technical metadata. This is the sort of obvious thing, right? We have information, perhaps it is a schema of customer data. So it says, there's a table called active customer and it has information, customer ID, customer name, CLV, whatever that might be. Technical metadata about the structure of that information. If it's a file, it might be information about the file. If it's something else, a pipeline, it doesn't actually matter what the actual technical format of it is. The idea is that technical metadata still tells us just those sort of technical bits and pieces about the shape of that data. Good. That's very sort of boring. But then we have semantic metadata. And of course, everyone now talks about semantics. I do a lot of work around semantics nowadays. And I've tried to kind of explain in a single or two examples here what semantics usually is. Semantics is really about terms and their definitions. So you have a term like an active customer, and then you define that in our company, we call active customer someone who has bought a product in the last year. Good. That's semantics. CLV, customer lifetime value, sum of accrued revenue, estimate future revenue. Good. Semantics. Then we have what I call governance metadata, which tells us something about who owns this data and what is its sort of wider meaning in the organization. Do we have specific policies that apply to this particular data? Obviously, this is also rather important context for AI use cases because we might have information here, for example, relating to security. How are you supposed to be sharing this data? This is now internal, not to go into the overall web. Okay, good. So obviously we all have this information. We have technical metadata everywhere. We have semantic metadata very well preserved in our catalogs or whatnot, and we have governance information. The truth is that we are mainly focusing and have been mainly focusing for decades on technical metadata alone. And technical metadata alone usually comes from, or it should come from, a process where we design the data solution that we have here by having some sort of an understanding of the business problem that we have. Someone writes perhaps down some requirements in Slack or in a document or whatever, and then it was supposed to be so that we create different sorts of data models that basically take us down kind of by level of detail towards the actual solution, starting from a conceptual level where we discuss about the, what the business things are, going towards the logical level where we discuss about the shape of the data, what sort of a structure do we need that fits the use case, and down to the physical level of, these are the files and tables or whatnot that we need. This was supposed to be the process of solution design, which basically produces technical metadata in the end. In reality, however, for the last 30 years, at least 20 years, since the big data revolution at least, we have not been doing most of this. We have not been doing a lot of conceptual data modeling, except because I've never stopped doing it because I like it. We have not done much in terms of logical data modeling. We have just started implementing things and perhaps getting the technical schema out as sort of documentation, giving us, again, technical metadata. We have the understanding of the business, the semantic information somewhere hidden in those emails and Slack channels and so on, and the requirements containing information on, let's say, how this is supposed to be shared is also hidden on those Slack discussions and emails. So in reality, even of the technical metadata that we have, we only have the sort of end result. This is the solution that we created, and we have a lot of information of context that we kind of had, but we lost it during that design process. So I'm not sure if you agree, but this is kind of me trying to be sort of realistic of where we are right now. So Stan will be talking about data catalogs later. So obviously data catalogs are the solution to everything, right? Because data catalogs are built to basically capture the technical metadata of all these solutions in a single nice, location where everyone can access that information, where everything is kind of cross-referencing each other, and it's easy to find whatever you need. This is how data catalogs had been built originally. The question, however, is about those other kinds of metadata, semantic and technical. Now it turns out that most catalogs were indeed designed and built to hold technical metadata, but all this semantic and governance information was sort of just added on top of it. In fact, I think even from the current crop of catalogs, very few are very good at handling any other kind of metadata than than technical metadata. And this is a major problem because now in the age of AI, to understand the context of the data, we do want these other pieces of information as well. So what we actually have nowadays is something that Ole Olsenbanjo calls metagrid, which is basically just a sad state of affairs where information relating to a specific data solution is actually spread around the whole organization. We might have some of the technical metadata gathered in the catalog, yes. There might be some semantic information, some technical information there indeed, but we have information about access policies in some IAM system. We have data about information about the calculation rules or logic in GitHub in the code. There's something in Confluence, there's tickets in Jira that tell us about who owns it and who it belongs to and so on and so forth. There's maybe some IT system that contains information about the servers on which this data solution resides. But all of this is kind of scattered around the organization. And this is where we are. This is actual reality in every single organization right now. It's just that the amount of data and type of data in these different systems differs from one organization to another. Drawing this picture in your organization is actually really, really interesting exercise. I heartily recommend it. You will suddenly start seeing that, hey, actually, information about this single solution exists already in a dozen different places. So that's where we are right now with context. And where are we going then? Let me check on timing. Yes, excellent. Right where we should be. Where are we going? Now this is how I see the future and how I hope it to be. This is not necessarily how it will be everywhere. But what we kind of need here is something that, yes, our data plane, as it were, where our data lives, the solutions exist there, whatever the technologies might be. But we need a knowledge plane in which all our metadata, not just technical metadata, but all the semantic and the governance information is interconnected so that we know that semantically information about customers and information about orders are linked, yes, but they are also semantically linked to the solutions so that we know that this particular solution is about customers and this one is about orders, and customers and orders are related to each other in this particular way. I'm not sure what this knowledge plane will look like. Maybe it's a knowledge graph. It looks like that might be a solution. That's why everyone's talking about ontologies and semantics and taxonomies right now. Perhaps it is not. Maybe it's something else. But I think that creating this plane separate from our data plane is where we need to be in order to give AI access to everything. Because without this metadata, there is no context. There is, at best, that little bit of technical information about tables, and perhaps you have appended that technical information with some descriptions that in our organization customer ID is the ID of a customer, which is very, very useful, and you are then attempting to get your AI to understand your data based on that. But that's the kind of overview of where we have been with our sort of technology-focused metadata management approach, and where I think we should be going, and where I also hope we are going to be going. And I believe that we're going to be hearing a lot about this direction later also today. Thank you.